Hey, I appreciate you saying that. It's interesting. Mary Jo and I were talking about that earlier today when we were recording similarly, and it's funny because I know last September we were getting ready to do the coaching academy in Birmingham, Alabama, and we were in discussion. Either it might have been after the event or after one of the evenings or the day before, something to that effect. And we were talking about the introduction to the book, and Mary Jo had said, "Well, I don't remember the last time I really dug into the introduction." And she went and did that again, and she was so fired up about it with new perspective. And then she said, "You know what? At the next coaching academy, I want to go over this." And she was just like very adamant that she had to go through that page of the book, and it's now become a really core area for herself, which I think is really great. What I get when I read page 3 and 4 is it's kind of like it's like a grounding exercise. Sometimes we have so much going on and our head is just buzzing with all these ideas and activities and the to-do list, the honey-do list of things that we have to get accomplished. You can't even almost reframe yourself. But then all of a sudden something happens. Someone comes up and says, "Hey, you know what? Take a deep breath. Sit down for a second." Someone comes up and gives you a big hug. And it's like everything else in your world just kind of melts away for a second. And then you're just very present in what's going on. That's what I find that page 3 and 4 does for me financially.
Yeah.
It creates that stasis of awareness and clarity and, okay, right? My mind is now ready to receive and learn as I go through the rest of this book.
It makes me think about, I know in Canada, hockey is the big thing. In the United States, it's American football. And one of the things that there's the team, the Green Bay Packers, used to have a famous coach named Vince Lombardi. And here he would work with all these professional football players, back in I think it was back in the 60s and 70s. But he would always start out the very first practice by bringing out and saying, "This is a football." Now here's, these guys know how to play the game and they're professionals. They do all this kind of stuff, but yet bringing back to the basics and just getting a good, strong foundation again. This is how we tackle. This is how everything works. This is how you block. And just coming back. And to me, that's really what the introduction is like. It just brings you back to the basics to make sure that you are, you're focused on the right things as you get into the rest of it. So,
yeah, I know at this year's think tank, I made a last minute slide for our Saturday session where we had the connection zone aspect, which we might talk about here in a moment. But just putting up, how I recommend people read the book, and it's my take on someone else's idea that I received years and years ago at a think tank. Yeah. And, what I ask people to do is to, I say, this is what worked for me. And if it worked for me, it might work for you. Here's how I would do it. And, see if you want to take it on for size. Start at page 85, you go to the end of the book, and then you go to page 3 and 4, which is the beginning, and you actually read it twice. Mm-hmm. And before you even move forward. And what I found, it's kind of like something that Nelson would do when he would start every session. He would say, "This is all about how you think." Mm-hmm. It's all about how you think. Yeah. You see, Kurt, it's all about how you think. Same thing 3 times with an emphasis on 3 different words. And it was, again, a very grounding kind of moment as he would begin a teaching session. And so page 3 and 4 really creates that. And so if you read it right away, but then you go back and you read it again, your brain is already picking out things that you didn't see when you go over it the second time because it's really fresh in your mind.
Yeah, I agree. I think we just got access to your reading list. So I thought, well, Richard and I think very differently. So I was curious to see how you would go through it. But as I saw it, I was like, someone on my team was like, "I don't know that I like it that way." And I go, "Well, everybody's got their own style, but I can understand why you put it together that way." And I thought, I'm going to read it that way this next time, just because I want to experience it. And that might be helpful when we share it with, especially particular clients as well. So.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great. I'd love to get your feedback on it to see if it does work and resonate. And the other thing for myself that kind of comes up is like I like shortcuts. I don't want to shortcut my education, but if there's a way I can do something a little bit faster, or I listen to a lot of my podcasts at 2x speed. Some people don't like the sound of their own voice as a chipmunk. I think I sound perfectly fine as a chipmunk. So those of you watching, you can comment below and let me know. But I think it's interesting to find ways to create little efficiencies. And so one of the reasons I put my method together is, to me, it was a way to do things a little bit more efficiently. And Nelson's book is 92 pages, but if you take out the glossary and the epilogue and the reading list and the table of contents and, some other kind of blank pages in there, you really dial it down to only about 70 pages that you have to read. So we say
Right.
it's a 92-page book because that's the truth.
Right.
But, what's actual content that you have to go through is really boiled down to about 70 pages. And, if you think about it, 70 pages, how long does it really take you to read 70 pages?
Right. Well,
You know,
and it's not that long, especially when, again, Nelson says at the very beginning of the book that he didn't write this book for, insurance people like us. He wrote it for, regular folks. So he's not using a bunch of industry lingo and all of the acronyms and all those things that we use to confuse people with. He's just speaking as a regular person to a regular person so that you can pick up on this and have it transform your life, which is what we want to be helping people do. But yeah. And now the one thing I will say is that we talk about the four characters in the play a lot. And that's so important to understand that we're typically only two of the characters in the play, the depositor and the borrower, and that we don't get to be the banker or the bank owner until we start the infinite banking process. And we get to add those two characters to our repertoire where that's how we gain the control and we start to share in the profit. But that is not mentioned except in the glossary. It's meant the words are mentioned, but you have to go to the glossary to actually see that it's described there. And then it's not described as we just described it. So that's probably the one area that wish would have been a little clearer. But obviously we know, and so we can share with people and help them understand as well. So
yeah, one of the items in the glossary that I always appreciate, which I still always puts a smile on my face, is that Nelson thought it was important enough to put the word gopher in there in relation to explaining what the gopher was. Well, the gopher is someone that works at a bank or an insurance company that pushes paper and doesn't really do anything. But when you phone in, chances are you're talking to a gopher.
right. Yeah.
Go for this, go for that, he would say.
Yeah, that's right. Right. Yeah. That was
No,
funny.
it is so curious, interesting how his personality and his humor is infused in the writing of a book. And it's funny because nowadays, if I go through the book and I'm reading it, having had the privilege to sit through his 10-hour seminar a number of times, it's literally like I'm reading it. It's like I can hear Nelson speaking in front of a room in my own head.
Yeah.
Because it reads very similar, very much like how Nelson would have talked directly, almost like a transcript of him speaking to people who are all in a live room at the same time.
Yeah. I do have a copy of one of his. I think one is at James Nethery had a recording. I think that's the one that I have of the 10-hour seminar that I've gotten to watch a couple times. So similar experience. I haven't watched it in a while, but I need to watch it again. But just as a good refresher.
A couple of things I'm curious about, Kurt, is as you move forward in this, you've got time under your belt now, but you have a lot more to give. When you think about some of your future and helping people embrace Nelson's message and doing it in the way that you've been doing it and having an opportunity to maybe expand your potential and with more resources and increasing your own knowledge base and having a great teammate and more teammates surrounding you, what has you excited about the next 5 to 10 years as you continue to go out and share this message with more people?
I remember I think it might have been that very first think tank that I was at, or it was the first or second one. And Carlos was up on stage, and it was the first time. I'll take a step back. When people talked about economics, I was kind of like, okay, yeah, I took economics in high school. I took it in college, and it was like, it wasn't very exciting. Oh, supply and demand curve, and you draw the chart and all that kind of stuff. It was like, this is not fascinating to me. But after I went to that think tank, it was Carlos was up giving his keynote at the beginning, and he was talking about reaching the 10%. And it dawned on me that economics is about freedom. And I love freedom. And that all of a sudden just resonated with me that we're not doing this. We're not doing this to sell more policies, right? To help people get more life insurance policies. We're doing this because we're helping people become free. And then it was like, oh, that was another aha moment for me. And I was just like, wow, that is a whole different take on what is happening here. And it got me really excited about economics. And I've been reading a lot more about economics and going to the, Foundation for Economic Education fee and different things, and reading articles and things. And I've read a number of books about economics, and you go to the back of the book with Nelson's, his book list in there, and there's other lists around, and just starting to pick up those books and read them and say, wow, this is really fascinating. And I find myself talking more about economics and freedom and those things in my conversations with folks we get to meet with. And it's really changing my perspective. Again, rethinking our thinking and expanding. But Nelson was just so impact, or not Nelson, but Carlos was very impactful in that presentation. And it helped me understand the importance of what reaching the 10% was all about. And for me, that's when I think about next 5 to 10 years, just teaming up with your team, trying to beginning to build that here in the US, having the resources available, just the potential. It's like that is a definite possibility, and I'm excited to be part of that. And that's really what I'm about. Is we're helping one family at a time, but we're helping one family at a time become free financially and in life in general. And we want to have 10% of North America have that opportunity. And to me, again, when somebody gets an aha, so we can get 10% of North America having aha moments to say, I need to take control of the banking function in my life, and I get to be a part of that. Well, that's pretty exciting to me. So that's how I see it. That's what we want to be a part of. So